Good evening, and welcome to the Backbenchers Podcast. In this week's episode, we'll be talking about the Paris Agreement. We'll also discuss about what exactly is the Paris Agreement, why it is so important, and how the countries are contributing to it. Stay with us while we talk about the successes, the challenges, and the criticisms they face on the path to achieve this goal. Welcome. The first topic we'll be talking about is the history and objectives of the Paris Agreement. And I have a guest waiting. His name is John. Hello, Peter. Nice to meet you, John. The first topic I would like to talk to you about is the history of Paris Agreement. So I would like to know when and why was the Paris Agreement adopted?
The Paris Agreement was adopted on December 3, 2050 at COP21 in Paris and came into force on November 4, 2060. It was created to bring nations together to combat climate change and its effects. Before this, the Kyoto Protocol 1997 focused only on developed countries, but this one is different. This one is not only focused on developed country but also focused on developing country, making it a truly global effort. That's all.
So moving on to the objectives of this Paris Agreement, what are like the main goals of this Paris Agreement?
The agreement has three main goals. The first one is limit global temperature rise. Keep the increase below 2 degrees Celsius with effort to stay with 1.5 degrees Celsius to avoid severe climate change. The second one is enhance adaptation and resilience. Help countries prepare for climate challenge like extreme weather and rising sea level. The last one is that support developing nations, provide financial and technological aid to help them transition to sustainable energy and climate challenges.
Thank you for talking to me about the history and objectives of it. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. The next two topics we'll be talking about are commitments by countries and climate finance. I have a guest waiting here, and his name's Leon. The first question I would like to ask Leon is, what are the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement?
Hello, Peter. So NDC is basically each country climate action plan. They outline how a country put to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to climate impact. So country must update the NDC every 5 years, since they are ideally aiming for more ambitious target.
The next question I have is like, are all countries required to reduce emissions at the same level under the Paris Agreement?
No, the Paris Agreement followed the principle of command but differentiate the responsibility and respect their capability. Most of the developed countries are responsible for highly gas emission, so they are supposed to take the lead, and while developing nations are contribute based on their capability and sarcasm.
So moving on to the next topic, how do countries ensure transparency in meeting their Paris Agreement commitments?
So the agreement include an enhanced transparency framework requiring countries to regularly report on their emission, progress in implementing their NDCs and climate finance contributions on it. These reports are reviewed internationally to promote accountability.
So the next question will be about climate finance. What is the 100 billion climate finance goal under the Paris Agreement?
The $100 billion climate finance goal under the Paris Agreement is a commitment by developed nations to help them support developing nations to climate change and develop climate impact. This goal was extended beyond 2020 with a discussion on a setting higher post 2025.
So like you talked about climate finance, and I would like to know who provides climate finance under the Paris Agreement.
Primarily developed countries, but the agreement encouraged all nations to contribute voluntarily. public fund, private investment, and multilateral institutions like the Green Climate Fund (GCF) play a role in financing climate action.
What challenges exist in delivering climate finance?
Challenges include ensuring sufficient funding, improving access for developing nations, balancing mitigations and adapting finance, and increasing private sector involvement. They are also concerned about transparency and accountability in tracking and distributing effectively.
Uh, Thank you, Leon, for joining me on this show. And next up, we'll be moving on to another topic, and we'll be back after a break. So we've covered topics like history, objective, commitment, and finance. Now we'll be moving on to implementation and enforcement mechanisms. And I have a guest here waiting for me to talk. His name's JJ.
Hello, Peter.
Hi. The first question I got for you is, how do countries know if they're following the agreement?
Each country set its own climate action plan called Nationality Determined Contribution, known as NDCS. These plans show how they will cut pollution and adapt to climate change. Richer countries also help developing nations by providing money, technology, and training, like that.
So the next question is how do we know if the countries are doing actually something that they promised about in the agreement?
For this question, there has a system called monitoring, reporting, and verification, known as an MRV. First one, monitoring, is like country track pollution levels and renewable energy use. Second one, reporting, is like they send report to the United Nations UN about their progress. And last one, verification. The experts check the report to make sure they are accurate. This help keep countries accountable.
So what if uh, a country doesn't follow the plan, and are there any penalties for those types of countries?
No, no, no. The Paris Agreement doesn't have a legal punishment. Instead, it uses peer pressure and public accountability, like global shock take. It's mean like every 5 years, all countries review progress together and like encourage stronger action and name and shame. It means if a country doesn't following plans, the world call them out and public pressure can push them to improve.
Okay, so but if we think about in real life, um, the law is what keeps us in order, and if there are actually no laws, people will be out of control. And just like this agreement, the agreement has no penalties. So do you think the agreement is strong enough to keep everything intact?
Actually, that's the challenge. Some countries that weak goals don't follow through. But if more countries increase their climate effort, provide financial support, and listen to the public pressure, the agreement will be more effective. Yes.
Okay, so thank you for talking to me about this topic, and we'll be back right after the break. Welcome back. The next topic we'll be talking about is the successes and challenges. The guest that will be joining on this topic is Kaias. Hi, Kaias. The first question I have is, how have countries progressed toward the Paris Agreement goals?
Many nations have actively engaged by submitting and updating their NDC, detailing strategy to reduce emission and adapt to climate impacts. This demonstrates a global commitment to addressing climate change collaboratively.
All right, moving on. What role has the Paris Agreement played in promoting clean energy innovations?
The agreement has been a catalyst for the global expansion of renewable energy. Notably, over 140 countries have integrated renewable energy targets into their climate action plans, with 75 prioritizing it as a central component.
So moving on, so you said about promoting clean energy and everything. So can you provide like an example of successful climate actions inspired by the Paris Agreement?
Oh, certainly. More than 1,000 major corporations have committed to significant emission reduction, recognizing that sustainable practices are beneficial for both the environment and their economic performance.
So since we've talked about the successes and the achievements, let's move on to the challenges and criticisms uh, the Paris Agreement faces. So what are like the main criticisms regarding the enforcement of the Paris Agreement?
A primary cry is the absence of binding a formal mechanism. The agreement depends on voluntary national parties, which some argue may not be sufficient to ensure compliance and achieve the desired climate outcomes.
So let's talk about some big country, the United States. Recently, I've heard that they've withdrawn from the Paris Agreement, but then there there are like some news about them rejoining. So how has like the United States participation in the Paris Agreement affected its implementation?
The USA has experienced policy shifts, including a withdrawal from the agreement and President Trump and re-entry under President Biden. These situations have led to concern about the stability and reliability of USA climate policies and their impact on global effort.
So there's like always doubters, right? So why do some experts also believe that certain nations' commitments under the Paris Agreement are insufficient?
Analysts point out that some countries have set emission reduction targets that may not align with the level needed to effectively limit global warming. This led all emission could undermine the collective goal of the agreement to mitigate climate change impacts.
Thank you for talking to me about the successes and the challenges of Paris Agreement. And we'll be back after the break. Welcome. Since we've talked about the successes and challenges, we'll be moving on to the next topic. And it is about the impact of Paris Agreement on global economy. The guest that will be joining me on this topic is Gaoni. Welcome to the show. First off, I would like to talk to you about which businesses are growing because of the Paris Agreement.
Businesses that use clean energy are growing too fast. For example, many companies are making solar panels and wind turbines and electric cars are doing well. More countries want to use renewable energy instead of renewable energy instance. Yes, so these businesses are making more growing and more creating new jobs. A great example is Tesla, which companies created an electric car and more people want to buy this car for don't need gas and don't pollute the air. Yes, that's it.
So, since you've talked about green energy, I would like to move on to another sector. What about the companies that sell coal and oil? What do you think happens to them?
These companies are having a hard time. Yes, since countries want to stop using gas and coal, these businesses are losing money, and many coal mines are shutting down, and some workers are losing their job. For example, in Germany, yes, coal mines are closing, shutting down, and people need to find a new job in clean energy. Yes, some oil companies are trying to change by investing in clean energy, but it is not easy. Yes.
So, like, for instance, do you think Paris Agreement is good or bad for businesses?
Yeah, it is a both good and challenging. And the good part is the new job are creating and in solar, wind turbines, and electrical industries. This is a good part, but the challenging is the same time. Companies and workers are struggling to keep on with the chain. Switching to clean energy can be expensive, and some businesses are still struggling to learning how to adapt. Yes,
So, what do you think will happen in the future?
I think the world is changing, and clean energy is growing too fast. But fossil fuels are slowly disappearing, and businesses must adapt to survive. Uh, if countries work together, we can have a healthier planet and strong businesses at the same time. But I think the big question is, can we make this change for enough to save the planet? And does this something we all need to think about it? Yes, yes. Thank
Uh,
you.
Thank you for talking to me about the impact the Paris Agreement has on the industries and the global economy.
Um,
We'll be back. Having had talked about the impacts Paris Agreement has on industries and global economy, we'll be moving on to another topic, and it's called the role of non-state actors. And I have a guest waiting here, and his name is Hendrik. Hendrik, how do multinational corporations impact global economies?
uh, MNCs. MNC create jobs, enhance economic growth and bring the technologies. However, they can also create. No, no, no. However, they can also case problem like poor labor, country, and environmental harm.
So, moving on to the next question. How do NSAs challenge state sovereignty?
NSA's influence laws weaken government control in unstable country and sometimes create their own power structure, uh, like affecting national and global decision.
So, like, what are the factors that have fueled the rise of the NSAs, which are also known as non-state actors?
Globalization, democracies, and advancements have held NSA growth, giving them more power to influence international policy and global problems.
Thank you, Hendrik, for joining me on this topic. Next up, we'll be talking about the future outlook of Paris Agreement, and we'll be back right after the break. The last topic we'll be talking about today is the future outlook of Paris Agreement. First up, countries are ramping up their climate commitments. By the end of this year, nations are expected to submit their updated nationally determined contributions, which are also known as NDCs, their official climate action pledges. The upcoming COP30 conference in Belém, Brazil, will be a key moment for countries to showcase their plans and hopefully raise their ambitions. But pledges alone won't solve the crisis. Experts are warning that achieving net zero emission by 2050 requires massive financial investment. According to Reuters, global investments in green energy need to hit $3.5 trillion annually. That's double what we're spending now. From solar power to sustainable transportation, the time to invest in the future is now. Despite these efforts, the planet remains in peril. A news report from Le Monde warns that On our current path, global temperatures could rise by a staggering 3.1 degrees Celsius by the end of this century. That's far beyond the Paris Agreement's goal of keeping warming well below 2 degrees Celsius, preferably 1.5 degrees. Scientists are clear. Without urgent action, the consequences will be catastrophic, and political tensions are adding to the uncertainty. The United States has once again withdrawn from the Paris Agreement, sparking concerns about a potential domino effect. But there is some good news. According to the UN climate chief, countries worldwide remain committed to their climate plans, vowing to press ahead with or without US leadership. So, what happens next? The world will be watching COP30 in Brazil, where leaders of the world will face pressure to turn promises into actions. Will we see bold new commitments? Will financial pledges materialize? And can global cooperation overcome political divides? Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, keep supporting the Backbenchers podcast.